Hello, everybody. My name is Simon Haigh, and I'm joined here with Hidai Degani. We're going to introduce ourselves in a second, but what we really want to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes is just give you a bit of an overview of a webinar that we have produced for corporations, within corporations, and also to assist representative bodies when they're working and providing training to their corporations. So this is very much about cultural resilience. And I guess, you know, particularly with what's happening in the world, we actually put this together before the coronavirus outbreak. And what's happening in the world right now has really demonstrated that we are a global family, okay, number one. And number two, we're going to need to work much more online. And part of companies managing their costs and rationalizing and looking at how they work effectively will mean that people are going to have to be very mindful of how they interact together online, and look at their cultural resilience, their cultural awareness, and I think this is also relevant to how companies are going to be dealing with their suppliers, their contractors, and I think Hidai is going to talk a little bit more later about in extreme times. Cultural characters become even sharper. And I think we need to be very aware of that. So just to move on, just an overview of me. So my background is I started life in the UK. I 13 years as an international corporate lawyer, UK, Ireland, Australia. I've been a CEO of a US company. I've written a number of books on closing deals. And today I'm a coach, a consultant. I do corporate training and increasingly, obviously, stuff online. Hidai, if you want to give an overview as to your background.
Sure. Thanks, Simon, for that. Yeah, so I've been doing for 40 plus years senior management positions all over Europe, actually. Originally for Israel, as mentioned, we'll talk about that later, but also spent time in Gibraltar, London, Berlin, Malta, in Ireland, Galway, originally, now in Dublin, in different kind of corporations, again, from startups and scale-ups and SMEs and the big ones. So it's a mix of industries and cultures, all of that together. And through that, I've seen quite a lot of things, some of them great, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess, my own mistakes, my own learnings, and more, I think culture is becoming a big part of that. I mean, now it's a known topic, but I also see it myself, how it's actually crucial to understand that and how much culture is driving a lot of actions and business success or business struggle, actually.
Absolutely.
In that sense. And currently, after I get those full-time position relocations recently, focusing on my own company, consultancy with my wife here in Dublin, Ireland, and working globally over the world, trying to help companies of every size, really, with everything. Some focus about digitally, customer experience in digital, which is what I've done through my career, helping them in a pragmatic way actually improve the business by using those tools, which again, now is a lot of movement towards, of course, digital tools, remote working, selling online, e-commerce, etc. But it was always the case for me. And yeah, that's basically that, I guess. And I think it's all connected together, the culture, the tools, everything, and a lot of talk about that and trying to really help in a pragmatic way any business out there currently, which again, we all need to help each other these days.
Great. So the next slide here just shows just how significant and what a minefield this whole area of cultural differences are. This slide shows on the left axis, those countries, bottom left, are more individualistic, like United States, Australia, GB, to much more collectivist, particularly South American and Asian countries. And then equally as important, on the bottom axis, the power distance axis shows that those countries with a low power distance, so Israel would be one of those countries. So countries with low power distance, social mobility through classes, through so those cultures are more directed by achievement rather than class. Whereas countries like Malaysia, Slovakia, the Philippines on the right-hand side it's much harder to move through the class structure. So that just shows you how complicated this whole area of cultural differences are, and this gets heightened when you're dealing with emotions in fraught times. Hidai, if you just want to give an overview on this slide.
Yeah, I think so. Again, culture is a very, very tricky thing. So first of all, again, why is it important? Again, I think known that it's a key factor, business success and everything. Everybody's talking about culture now. However, talking about culture, just saying culture is important is very nice.
Yeah.
When you break it down, it becomes very, very, very tricky. So the first point is important. Yes, as you said, the world is global, and Corona proved us again, it's a global world, and phenomena are happening all over the world. And we can actually now measure it in that sense.
Yeah.
And markets are becoming more and more global. For example, specifically where we sit today in Ireland and Dublin, many people are coming to work in Ireland and Dublin specifically from all over the world, literally.
Yeah.
So if you back then you had companies which were only Irish companies, same thing in Israel, something in the UK and other places. Now there's more and more people from all over the world, from very, very different cultures, and they all need to work very well together. It's becoming crucial that they work, because if they don't, it's becoming very, very tricky. But if you can able to master that, that can be a big factor of success, actually. Now, why it's very, very tricky? Because even the graph we shared before, saying Israeli are like that, UK are like that, it's broad generalism, borderline racism if you don't careful with that.
Yeah.
However, there is some truth to that. So culture is there, but every human being is very different. I'm only one Israeli in the world. You're someone who lives also lots of places. How Israeli am I after living outside of Israel for 10 years? It's a good question. I don't even know the answer.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very, very tricky subject, very, very sensitive. Yeah. One wrong foot here and there, you insult someone, or you make a mistake, which can be costly.
Absolutely.
So how do you navigate all of that? And I've seen it many, many times. I made my own mistakes, and I try to learn from them. So it's a minefield, really. However, the minefield is here. So it's all over there. We are just becoming more and more global. We have calls now in Zoom all over the world with our supply chain, with people in China, people in Russia, people in New York, every day now. So how do we deal with those people in the best way possible and really work together is becoming actually harder and harder, not really easier
Absolutely.
as we go. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to be mindful of. And again, companies or moving people relocation, again, as like I've done a few times, you have the local culture always, because the company is always based in some place.
Yep.
What's happening is people from the outside, how do they feel out? They feel like actually local people get preferential treatment. And again, all of those topics I say are very, very, very tricky, very toxic. Usually people try to avoid them. However, avoiding them, not trying to deal with them in a good way, could be very tricky and could be costly as well. So what we're trying to do is really provide the best advice or raise awareness to that, and trying to give some tools and tips and tricks from our joint experience to navigate that minefield in the best way possible, because it's there anyway. So avoiding it won't really help.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Again, I mean, so an area, some of you out there might think, well, why negotiation in these times? Well, surely everything's closing down. But to the contrary, all the warnings are saying that if you have credit lines, you need to really try and negotiate, right? You need to try and renegotiate, probably sooner rather than later. If you're dealing with suppliers, you need to do the same as well. And if you have deals that you can get over the line quite quickly, then you need to do that. So Hidai, just explain what this slide is talking to in that respect.
Yeah, that's one of the charts I like, actually. I think it's quite accurate, actually. And so far, whenever time I presented it, people say, yeah, it's actually quite true. And it shows that it's called negotiation, but actually, I found it actually quite relevant in almost every interaction. For example, I take Israel. Every chart you take, Israel is at the top end of some chart, which is very interesting. It's a very strong culture, which is quite out there and different than the others. In that sense, when you talk to someone, there's the confrontation versus avoid confrontation, and there's emotionally expressive versus emotionally unexpressive. Israel, again, top there, will confront you and will be emotional about it. And that's me, right? That's what you're gonna get from me any given day. I can control it, I can try to learn it, and I've learned to maybe do something with it, but naturally, that's the way I'm gonna talk to you about anything. And we'll show some example later on, but tell me yes or no, I'll tell you yes and no. It won't be, I'm thinking, maybe. I won't tell you yes if I don't mean a yes, it will be a no. And I will be emotional. I will talk with the hands. I will talk like that. I will be very loud voice. That's what you're going to get usually. Again, broad generalization. But that's what usually you're going to get from someone Israeli. However,
sorry to interrupt. Would you say that this becomes even more heightened and harder to read when people are working online? Is it more confusing?
Definitely so. Because, for example, if there's no video and it's only my voice, it's even harder. My accent is harder. You don't see my face. You don't see my emotions. You might think I'm screaming to you full. You might think, what, this guy's going crazy. So all those cues to see the eyes, if I don't see you on video call, I don't see if you understand me at all. So I force people, for example, to use video. Show me your face, because
Yeah.
Otherwise, I know with my accent and speed and emotional, people might lose me. And I don't
Yeah.
know, I won't even know if they lose me or not. And they might misinterpret. They might not judge, not get what I'm saying. I might not get them. And a topic which is anyway tricky, talking about, I might not be able to pay you. I might need to slice it to installments, which is anyway a very toxic topic. If I don't get you, you don't see my face, it can very, very quickly escalate to something very bad. And like you mentioned in the beginning, I would probably be a harder Israeli when I'm stressed. So my core culture and my core behaviors will probably even shine in that sense even harder, and same for the other side.
Whereas a Japanese person, the opposite end of the extreme, probably would become quieter and more inscrutable, more Japanese, you know. So I think that's a great slide to demonstrate just how heightened things can get, particularly in tough times. In terms of virtual team management, I mean, I don't think there's been a better time in history. I was just talking to somebody today that to imagine if this crisis had happened 15 years ago, before we had Skype and Zoom and all these tools. So we are fortunately living in a time of virtual team capabilities, but that means that still needs to be managed within the context of cultural astuteness. So it's very important to, we need to establish terms of reference when we're talking with each other online. We need to use different types of tools, be very mindful that people are in different jurisdictions, have clear and detailed deliverables, always create a professional work environment. There's no such thing as a stupid question, but also be very, very mindful of that there are cultural differences. Some cultures find it easier to ask questions, and some cultures would be more inscrutable, as I've said. You can use humor, but be very, very careful, culturally astute about humor as well. So I think that area is a complete minefield, but I'm noticing a much more of an interest in how organizations culturally and sensitively manage their virtual team environments. And then Hidai, I think this is a great example. I think because you showed on the previous graph that Israel would be very extreme in terms of certain types of cultural positioning. So maybe just describe what you're talking about here.
Yeah. First of all, by the way, one of the rules we spoke about, you and I, before the previous slide, I use the Israeli because I think the rule is you can always laugh about your own culture, but to never laugh about anyone else. So I will use Israel just because I can, not to insult any Israelis out there might be watching. But anyway, Israel in that sense, again, it's quite unique in that sense. You see two pictures here. Again, that's an Israeli queue. A British queue does not look like that. Whatever you do, it will never look like that. The British will stand there. Again, I respect it deeply, but that's an Israeli queue. Always, any given day, whatever you do. And again, make it panic buying. You can get that in full 10 times worse than that. People might be even fighting. So that's what you see. That's what kind of the behavior that goes along, that comes with it. So that's a good example of kind of not really authority. Someone tells us to do something, stay at home. We might stay, we might not. We'll decide. People will, like you said, individualism, they will decide on their own. It won't be like, for example, other countries say, that's what you do, and everybody obeying, no question asked. You won't really get that in a country like Israel naturally. That's about that. You talked about before about getting the task at hand. It's about getting stuff done. It doesn't matter. I might insult you. Okay, let's keep all this. How are you? How are you doing? What's happening? Come on, that's the task. Do 1, 2, 3, 4. Very task-oriented. Get stuff done. That's the main thing. But problem solving, improvising out of the box, a lot of let's find a way to do this and this and that. Probably more than other countries as well. Even if it's breaking a few rules or bending a few rules, that's fine. But go and get stuff done, whatever you need to do. It's kind of part of the culture there, which again might look very crazy or disobedient, or why are you doing that? We told you to do that. So why are you trying to go in the side of the contract or something which was not written? Why do we talk about that? So it could be that could be very confusing and tricky for other cultures to understand. Why are they doing that? Why are they trying to come up with something which we don't agree on? We didn't discuss it before. So that can be tricky. And the informal is classic as well. Again, especially when summer kicks in, people dress like that. That's actually from a video from the Australian embassy. They made a funny video that the embassy was leaving, and he made a very funny video on Facebook for the next embassy to replace him, ambassador, sorry. And it was very funny. So he showed that that's how you go to a meeting. That's a CEO and a meeting in Israel. That's how they look. So don't try to guess who's the CEO. You're probably going to be mistaken. And it's not about dressing up. There's no suits. It's really like that. And that's how you get stuff done. But again, if you put a Japanese in that room, you'd be shocked. Like, whoa, what's going on? What's sandals and shorts? you must be joking. So that can be, again, you must understand when you come in there and when you go to other places, what to expect, what to understand from that. Otherwise, it can very quickly be, you might insult someone, people might be very offended very easily if you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
That's a few examples. We have more in the full version.
Excellent. Thanks, Hidai. So in a nutshell, so that really just wraps up our teaser. I guess a message just to put out there is that, having an intellectual understanding of matters like cultural resilience is great, but there's no substitute for, having that visceral personal experience. And Hidai and I have lived and worked in probably well over a dozen countries. So we've had to step around this very sensitively. So we have that personal experience, to bear in relation to this. And then I suppose just to close, McKinsey's have done a really good analysis of what corporates need to do now, particularly in these times. And, financial stress testing is one, nerve center integration is another one, customer engagement is another one, supply chain management and workforce protection. And I would say three of those in particular, workforce protection, supply chain engagement and customer management, all require good cultural resilience. Both face-to-face, at a distance, and online. So we hope, Hidai and I hope you found this helpful. And what we'd like to do is offer this program. We are offering this programs to companies internally and to organizations, representative bodies who really want to look at this as part of their corporate actions, the due diligence going forward. So thanks very much, Hidai, and we hope that was helpful to everybody. And thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Simon.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.